Picture this. You're standing on the cliffs of northeastern England. The wind is howling in your ears, the air tastes of salt, and stretching out before you is a vast, grey, churning body of water. This is the North Sea, and trust me, what looks like just a cold, uninviting stretch of ocean on the surface is actually one of the most historically significant, economically powerful, ecologically rich, and geopolitically important bodies of water on the entire planet. Today, we're going to dive deep into all of it. From Viking longships to oil rigs, from ancient land bridges to future wind farms. The North Sea has a story that will absolutely blow your mind. Let's get started. The North Sea is a marginal sea of the Atlantic Ocean, tucked between the British Isles on the west and the European mainland on the east and south. It is bordered by 8 countries: the United Kingdom, Norway, Denmark, Germany, the Netherlands, Belgium, France, and if you count the Orkney Islands, it almost touches the edge of the Scottish coast up north. Now that's a lot of neighbours for one sea. The North Sea covers about 570,000 square kilometres, roughly the size of France, and it's relatively shallow. Most of it is less than 100 metres deep, with an average depth of only about 95 metres. But don't let that fool you. Shallow doesn't mean calm. This is one of the roughest seas in the world, famous for its sudden storms, dangerous waves, and unpredictable weather that has sunk thousands of ships over the centuries. The sea connects to the Atlantic Ocean through the English Channel in the south and the Norwegian Sea in the north. Major rivers drain into it, including the Rhine, the Elbe, the Thames, and the Scheldt, bringing fresh water, sediment, and, unfortunately, these days, a fair amount of pollution. The seabed is mostly flat, covered in sand and gravel, a remnant of a very different time that we'll come to in just a moment. Here's something that absolutely fascinates me, and I think will fascinate you too. About 10,000 years ago, the North Sea didn't exist, at least not in the form we know today. In its place was a vast fertile landmass that geologists and archaeologists call Doggerland. It connected Britain directly to continental Europe, and it was home to thousands of prehistoric people, ancient hunter-gatherers who roamed its plains, fished its rivers, and hunted mammoths and wild horses across its grasslands. Then, as the last ice age ended, global temperatures rose, ice sheets melted, and sea levels climbed, slowly at first, then faster. Doggerland began to flood. Rivers became estuaries, hills became islands, and gradually, over thousands of years, this entire civilization was swallowed by the sea. The final blow may have come around 1200 BC from a catastrophic event, a massive underwater landslide off the coast of Norway called the Storegga Slide, which triggered a tsunami that inundated what was left of Doggerland almost overnight. Today, fishermen occasionally dredge up bones of woolly mammoths, ancient tools, and even human remains from the bottom of the North Sea, ghostly reminders of a world that once thrived where only waves now exist. Doggerland is essentially Europe's Atlantis, a real documented, scientifically verified lost world right beneath our feet, or rather, beneath our ships. Fast forward to the early medieval period, and the North Sea becomes the highway of the Vikings. From around the 8th to the 11th centuries, Norse warriors and traders launched thousands of expeditions across this sea, raiding monasteries on the English coast, trading furs and amber in Frankish ports, settling in Iceland, Greenland, and eventually reaching North America. The North Sea wasn't a barrier to them, it was a road. A very dangerous road, yes, but a road nonetheless. Their longships were engineering masterpieces, shallow enough to navigate rivers, sturdy enough to cross open seas, and fast enough to catch their targets off guard. The North Sea shaped the entire character of these Norse people, bold, adventurous, fearless in the face of dangerous water. But the Vikings weren't the only ones who used this sea. The Hanseatic League, a powerful medieval trading alliance of northern European cities, dominated North Sea commerce from the 13th to the 17th centuries, shipping wool, cloth, fish, timber, and grain across its waters. Cities like Hamburg, Lübeck, and Amsterdam grew wealthy beyond imagination on this trade. The North Sea, in many ways, built the economic foundations of Northern Europe. Then came the age of sail, and with it, naval battles that changed the course of history. The Anglo-Dutch wars of the 17th century were fought almost entirely on these waters. The Battle of Jutland in 1916, the largest naval battle of World War I, took place right here in the North Sea, between the British and German fleets. Over 6,000 British sailors and 2,500 German sailors died in a single engagement. The North Sea has seen blood as much as it has seen trade. Now let's talk about fish, because for centuries, North Sea fisheries were the lifeblood of coastal communities across the entire region. The herring trade alone shapes the economies of entire nations. Dutch herring fishing in the 16th and 17th centuries was so successful that historians have called the herring the silver of the sea. It funded Dutch exploration, funded their armies, and made the Netherlands one of the wealthiest nations on earth. Today, the North Sea is still one of the most productive fishing grounds in the world, home to cod, haddock, plaice, mackerel, herring, and many other species. But it's under enormous pressure. Decades of overfishing have severely depleted fish stocks. The cod population, once so abundant that early fishermen said you could almost walk across the sea on their backs, has collapsed dramatically. Scientists and regulators are working hard to restore these populations, with some success, but it remains a fragile situation. The fishing rights in the North Sea have also become a major political issue, especially after Brexit, when the United Kingdom left the European Union and renegotiated access to its waters. What might seem like a bureaucratic trade dispute is actually a fight over centuries-old fishing traditions and the livelihoods of thousands of coastal families. Now here is where the North Sea truly transforms from a historical curiosity into a modern economic powerhouse. In 1959, a massive natural gas field was discovered at Groningen in the Netherlands, close to the coast. Then, in 1969, the Ekofisk oil field was found deep beneath the Norwegian sector of the North Sea, and the world suddenly realized that this shallow, stormy sea was sitting on top of an enormous reservoir of fossil fuels. What followed was an oil rush unlike anything Europe had seen before. Platforms were built in some of the harshest conditions imaginable, in waters so rough that workers described it as living on a ship that never docked. The engineering challenges were extraordinary. Concrete structures weighing hundreds of thousands of tons were floated out to sea and sunk into the seabed. Pipelines snaked across the seafloor for hundreds of kilometers. New technologies were invented almost overnight just to survive the North Sea's brutal conditions. The payoff was enormous. By the 1980s, North Sea oil had transformed the economies of both the UK and Norway. For Britain, the oil revenue helped fund Margaret Thatcher's economic policies. For Norway, it was the beginning of something even more remarkable. The Norwegian government pension fund, also known as the Oil Fund, which today is worth over $1 trillion and is the world's largest sovereign wealth fund. Every Norwegian citizen is technically a millionaire on paper, thanks in large part to the wisdom of saving and investing North Sea oil revenues rather than spending them all immediately. At its peak in the late 1990s, the North Sea was producing around 6 million barrels of oil per day. Production has declined significantly since then, but the North Sea remains an important energy source, with hundreds of active platforms still operating today. Of course, all of this human activity, fishing, oil extraction, shipping, and industrial runoff from some of Europe's most densely populated coastlines, has taken a serious toll on the North Sea's environment. The North Sea is one of the busiest and most heavily used seas on Earth. Around 400 million people live in its catchment area, the land that drains into it. The rivers flowing into the North Sea carry agricultural fertilizers, industrial chemicals, plastics, and pharmaceutical residues. These cause problems like algal blooms, explosions of microscopic plant life that consume oxygen and create dead zones where fish cannot survive. Warming ocean temperatures, driven by climate change, are also shifting the distribution of species in the North Sea. Fish are moving northward in search of cooler water. That's disrupting food chains and fishing industries that have been stable for generations. And yet, the North Sea is resilient. Conservation efforts have led to the recovery of some seal and dolphin populations. Stricter regulations on industrial discharges have improved water quality in many areas, and there is genuine reason for optimism. Because the North Sea is not just about the past or even the troubled present, it is increasingly about the future. Specifically, the future of clean energy. The same powerful winds that made the North Sea so dangerous for sailors and so miserable for oil rig workers are now being harnessed to generate electricity on a massive scale. The North Sea is home to some of the largest offshore wind farms in the world. The Hornsea Wind Farm off the Yorkshire coast in England is currently the world's largest, with over 170 turbines generating enough electricity to power more than 1 million homes. And this is just the beginning. The UK, Germany, Denmark, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Norway have all committed to massive expansions of offshore wind in the North Sea over the coming decades. There are even plans to create a North Sea wind power hub, a series of artificial islands in the middle of the sea that would serve as connection points for wind turbines from multiple countries, essentially turning the North Sea into a giant clean energy grid for all of Europe. It's ambitious, expensive, and audacious. In other words, perfectly in keeping with the North Sea's entire history. So what is the North Sea? It is a graveyard of lost civilizations and a cradle of new ones. It is a battlefield and a trading floor. It is a source of fish and fossil fuels, of danger and of dreams. It has shaped the histories of Britain, Norway, the Netherlands, Denmark, Germany, and beyond. Not just as a geographic feature, but as an active force that demanded human ingenuity, courage, and adaptation at every turn. From the people of Doggerland, who walked across its floor 10,000 years ago, to the Viking warriors who rode its waves, to the oil workers who defied its storms, to the engineers now planting wind turbines in its churning waters, the North Sea has always been a place where humanity tests itself against nature and, more often than not, finds a way to not just survive, but to thrive. The North Sea is not a gentle sea, but it is a great one, and its story is far from over. Thank you